So I wanted to go back and re-explain the topic and the assignment from Friday. Not that I think anyone can't do it. So far, only one person has done it, but that's fine. It's not due for a while yet. But I'm going to extend the deadline on it, and I just want to make sure that you guys can do this and do it well. Because being able to use the slope and understand how it's used to graph is going to be used a lot the rest of this unit, actually even into the next unit a little bit. So what I want to reiterate is actually what slope is. Okay, the slope is how far apart a pair of points is vertically and horizontally. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that slope to move vertically and horizontally from one point to the next on our graph. Okay, so I'm going to give you 1 point to start at and a slope. You're going to use your slope to move from that point, not the origin, because we always go back to the origin when we start graphing points. We're not graphing a new point. We're moving from one to the next. So keep in mind that there's two sets of directions on these. Okay, that's like the big thing. Your numerator, the top number, controls your up and down. So pay attention to whether it's positive or negative. Your bottom number is going to control whether you move left or right. Okay, so that being said, if I were to give you, say, a slope of, sorry, I'm trying to do this with the mouse. Like, let's say our slope is negative 2/3. Okay, what that means for us is that our set of directions, that top number is going to tell me to move 2 units down, and my bottom number is going to tell me to move 3 units right. Now, why am I moving right instead of left? Well, my habit, the habit that I got into way back in 8th grade when I took algebra, if your slope is negative, just make that your numerator. Okay, because you might see your slope written as like negative and then 2/3. So a lot of people might want to assign that negative to the top and the bottom. It only assigns to the numerator. So keep that in mind. Top numbers up and down, bottom numbers left and right. If your slope is negative, by default, move down. And then your denominator, your movement horizontally would always be positive or to the right. Another thing to keep in mind is we need two sets of directions. So if your slope is, say, a whole number, let's say I give you a slope of, I don't know, maybe 6, you need to make that in your mind. You don't have to necessarily commit it to paper, but you need to realize that 6 as a whole number is equivalent to 6/1 as a fraction. If you were just to use your 6 as a vertical movement, if you were just to move 6 units up and you don't move left and right at all, it winds up being a vertical line. And one of the things that we talked about the other day was how vertical lines have no slope, they're undefined. Okay, so if you completely 100% understood what we did on Friday, you can stop this right now. If you're still struggling, keep paying attention here. All right, so what I'm going to do is use this. I'm going to do this one later. I'm going to, on number 1 here, I'm going to start graphing your point. We'll even do this. We'll do first things first, graph the point. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is graph my point. That is, you graph that normally. You've been graphing since middle school, so just graph like normal on that one. So I'm going to start my graph at 4, 6. Make my point a little bit bigger, easier to see here. So 4, 6. Okay, it's really big. From that point, again, we're not going back to the origin. From that point, I'm going to move 2 directions. I'm going to move using the slope. I'm going to move 2 units up. My numerator is up. I'm going to move 2 units up and 3 units to the right. So I've got a second point right here. 2 up, 3 over. I would like you to repeat that and do it again. So you've moved up 2 over 3. I'm going to move up 2 more, 3 more to the right. That third point is basically a check. It's going to make sure that you did the first one right. If you mess up the second or the third point, either one of them, it's going to throw your graph off and you'll know it because it won't be a line. So once you get your lines graphed as best you can, once you get your points graphed as best you can, draw a line through all 3 of those. Now, you're going to be using Kami to do this, so you might need to kind of play around with where the points are at so that they go through all three. But it should look something like that. Okay, same steps. The only issue with this one is I do not have a denominator on my slope. So I'm going to put that over 1. So graphing this one, I'm going to start at +4, -6. +4, oh, my face is in the way. +4, -6 is way down here. From there, I'm going to move 0 units up and down. I'm not going to move up and down at all because it is a 0 slope. And I'm going to move 1 unit to the right. So my second point is going to be right here, and do it again. I want 3 points on all of these. So when I go back and graph, try and make your lines as long as possible. When you're graphing these in Kami, you can play around with the thickness of them to make them a little easier to see. Don't make your points this big to cover up a third of the graph or anything like that. Just a little common sense. Okay. Now, this is what I was talking about here. I've got a negative slope. So again, me personally, every time I see one of these that's a negative, I assign that to the numerator, and I kind of forget about it out front here. So it's -3/4 instead of -3/4. What that will allow you to do is kind of, in your head, oh, I need to move down. All right, so 5 -3 here. It's hard to see. There we go, 5 -3. And now I'm going to move down 3 units and 4 to the right. Okay, now when I go to move again, I can't move down 3 more units and 4 more units to the right because it runs off my graph. So what you can do instead is think just a little bit. Instead of moving down and to the right, how about if I were to move up and to the left? That's equivalent, right? Because I still get that same stair step action. It's still 4, 3, 4, 3. So when I go to graph, and again, just kind of adjust your line a little bit so it hits all your points. All right, same thing happens on this one that has no denominator. I'm going to make that over 1. Whoops, should have turned the page. I'm going to make this guy over 1. So I can go back, -2, -2 is way up here. Down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. Okay, again, 3 points lets me know that you graphed them right. It's actually an easy way to check yourself. And it doesn't really cost you anything or take that much time. Okay. All right. Make sure that you can do this. I'm very serious about this because moving forward, we're going to keep graphing, we're going to keep graphing, we're going to keep graphing. You've got to be able to handle slope. Okay, that's it.